Repeating this.
If, for example, we would vote to fund the streetcar project, does that negate the legislative prohibition, or does it just delay the impact of it?
I'm going to give you my interpretation of that.
Okay, I'm looking for one.
The activities of the TRAC do not trump law. And law will take place July 1st. Again, it was not our intention to have that in law, but it is.
Okay. Of the recommendations in front of us, what other alternatives, and I don't think we've heard that in our previous meetings, did staff look at to come up with the cut we needed of in Tier 1, I think 43 million off the top of my head? What other alternatives were looked at besides the front of it coming from the streetcar project? I'd just like to know what other scenarios were played out. We've heard people suggest across the board cut lower priorities. I just would like to know what staff looked at.
Jennifer, can you?
Staff looked at every project individually, as the score, as well as all the other information that we received on those projects. I will tell you that safety was a big consideration that the staff took into effect when we were looking at the Tier 1 commitments that were proposed to you.
Yes, Jennifer.
I certainly understand that the law is the law, but laws change, and so I would, I guess, encourage us to think in terms of today, because there may be some opportunities for the law to change between now and the beginning of the new fiscal year. So from that standpoint, I'd like for us to know that that law is out there, but not let it drive our thinking, our best thinking today.
And I would agree with that. I think we should conduct ourselves today based on the proceedings of the TRAC and our judgment as to what the TRAC commitment should be. And then we'll deal with that aspect of the law when we have to. For now, we should deal with this in terms of what our genuine recommendations are.
Director.
Jack?
Comment. Director, TRAC members, assembled guests, honored elected officials. As someone who has worked on transit projects as a member of the ODOT executive staff, this includes the North Quarter Light Rail Transit Project, which went on for 4 years, and we stood shoulder to shoulder with COTA, the Central Ohio Motor Transit Authority here in Central Ohio, and we spent $10 million on a draft environmental impact statement, and this is what we have left of it. This statement, if $500 million fell from the sky today, would have to be redone. I make this point to say that ODOT funding should be the last money on the table, not the first of these projects. I further state that it is not ODOT's responsibility to establish the financial viability of these local projects. The compelling arguments were made here, many of which I personally agree with in terms of the viability, I should say the economic attractiveness of a streetcar and convenience it provides. However, in a recent streetcar study done here in Columbus, Mayor Michael Coleman did a financial plan. Full disclosure, my firm was a part of that financial planning process. $103 million streetcar plan. What Mayor Coleman and his auditor, Hugh Dorian, sought from ODOT, $1 million over 10 years. Again, I do not believe, Director Ray, that it is ODOT's responsibility to establish the initial financial viability of these local systems, how meritorious they are. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I was just saying, in response to, what our news track member, I'm sorry.
Marchbanks.
Yeah, Mr. Marchbanks just stated, I did want to point out on the original draft list of the projects that were approved by the TRAC, it did show the other funding commitments. And for the Cincinnati Streetcar project, there was $79 million of local funding. So it's not, I don't think that this particular project is relying completely on the state to make it happen. There is significant local commitment and other federal, just as a point of clarification or information.
Point taken.
Just a few comments. You know, I said at our last meeting that this is a very difficult issue for many of us. And I would point out that from this entire process where we've put forward a draft list into the public domain for discussion and feedback, and we've certainly got an incredible amount of feedback on both sides of this issue. For me, it come back to the fact that we are 62 or 63% overfunded in our Tier 1 projects, and even more so in our Tier 2 projects. And that's a tough thing to get your hands around. And I'd ask the staff maybe for a little guidance, but from the initial list that we started with to the list that is before us today, I think there's only 4 projects that are being advanced for Tier 1 funding. I mean, so you know, it's not like there's all these other projects out there. We've really whittled this down to 4 of them, and 2 of them are legacy projects. I mean, they represent $30 million of the $50 million in funding. Almost 60% of the funding goes to finally complete those 2 rail rate crossing separation projects that we, as a TRAC, have spoke very passionately about. So, I hear a lot of that. There's all these other projects are going to get funded, and I don't think that's really the case. I mean, we've really whittled this down, tried to face a 62% deficit head on, and we're down to just a handful of projects. And while that's unfortunate, because I think there are a number of good projects before us, some of which we do not have funding for at this time, I mean, that's a tough thing to wrestle with. So I just wanted to have that on the record for us.